Hello, and welcome to Palindrome ASMR. This is a sequel to a highly successful video of mine called A College Kid's Diet. So in this video, this is mainly going to be an eating and ramble video. In this video, I am going to be eating this wonderful ramen soup, drinking a Diet Pepsi, and talking about things that interest me. If you asked me what my favorite food was, I would most likely have to say either ramen or cheese. My favorite thing to consume by far is diet soda. I probably consume more ounce per ounce of diet soda than I do any other thing in existence. But that's just because I have a nasty soda habit. So I said, I was talking yesterday about my coin counting video, about politics and my somewhat unique view on the world, and I wanted to expand a little bit on that premise. So the basics of my argument were that you really don't have to fear or complain about how politics are going unless it affects you personally, because there are highly trained, highly educated people at the top who are interested in keeping you fed and happy. Their interests align with your primary interests, which are food and shelter and entertainment. And to a lesser degree, freedom, because that is what capitalism is all about. And the cabal of capitalists who rule the world, which I'm just using as one example of possible real scenarios, they have your best interests in mind because your best interests align with their best interests. Because that is how the engine of capitalism works. I could explain that idea a little bit further, but my main purpose for coming on this topic again was because I sounded in my last video a little bit too optimistic and a little bit too naive and a little bit too hopeful, and I wanted to addendum my previous explanations by saying that it's entirely possible for things to go south. It's entirely possible for a democratic nation to become a horrible place, as was evidenced by Germany. Hitler was elected. Many people seem to forget that fact. Hitler was elected, and the German people were first world, educated, and democratic as far as people go. And yet, World War II and the Holocaust still happened. Whereas you can excuse the Soviet problems by blaming communism, you can't really excuse the German behavior, because the Germans were, by all means, a democratic, first world capitalist nation who just so happened to elect a fanatic leader. And before any of you make any Trump comments, I'm going to say I don't like participating in those debates, and I won't reply to any comments that aren't well thought out and non-aggressive. But what my point in rambling about this is that it's entirely possible for a nation considered to be at the top of the world to degenerate into horrifying atrocities. But I think the day of the collapse of nations is over, as evidenced by the collapse of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was a nation that collapsed, and the citizens are just the same or better off because of it. And I just think that it's pretty much impossible in today's globalized world for a major collapse that affects everyone's lives to actually happen, as was evidenced in the Ebola outbreak. I think the Ebola outbreak was actually very hopeful, because there was one case in, what was it, Dallas, and the media and the establishment and the hospitals reacted so quickly and so thoroughly that the virus didn't have a chance to gain a foothold in America. And though Ebola is a little bit hard to talk about because it was a virus transmitted by fluid contact instead of sneezing and coughing, I think that by the time a virus becomes big enough to the point where it becomes news, everyone will know about it. And because they know about it, knowledge is defense. And I think this knowledge is a defense against tragedy. Is with the advent of the internet, knowledge is a defense against tragedy, while being somewhat an untenable claim that needs justification, is actually a very good thing. Because people know, because people are informed about the real truth of things, or somewhat the truth of things, they can react and they can change their behavior. And this complex, this information transmitting transfusional complex, it basically holds the world together, so that when a country collapses, as in the case of, say, Greece, you remember back when Greece collapsed completely due to its, it declared bankruptcy. If a country declaring bankruptcy is about as collapsed as it gets in today's modern times, besides hellholes in Africa and trouble in the Middle East, but that's a whole nother story. So when Greece collapsed, there was so much international aid, not in the form of money, but in the form of support. The European Union bailed them out. And frankly, I think the same thing would happen if America were to declare bankruptcy, which it won't. It won't get bailed out by other countries, but something is going to happen that will at least preserve the quality of life of its citizens. And that's the bottom line. The bottom line is quality of life. The bottom line is the ability for your children and you to get a good education, get a good job, and eat good food, and get fat. Getting fat is, it's a good thing. That's the bottom line. And I think in today's internet world, that getting fat, that bread in circuses is very easily obtainable. And bar some hideous natural disaster, most people are going to live in relative comfort. And I just wanted to addendum my optimistic idealism by saying it's exactly that. It's idealism. You can take it at face value, or you can argue with me and, talk about your own less optimistic view of the world. But I think, personally, for me, the day Gangnam Style reached 1 billion views on December 21st, 2012. I remember this because I'm going to get into some interesting things soon. That was when the I forget what it's called. The poll that was polling all of history towards this one point in time. All of history was heading towards this one point in time. And then when Gangnam Style hit 1 billion views, everything just reversed itself. And history was completed. And right now we are living in the post time wave universe, and this theory is based off of Terence McKenna's time wave theory. So it's not, I don't actually believe this. I'll have to caveat that this is just idle speculation on my part. I don't actually believe this, and I don't let this affect any of my everyday interactions, which is the mark of belief. If something you believe affects your everyday actions, then by all means you believe it. But if it doesn't affect your everyday actions, then, or any actions at all, then it's okay to just consider. Actions speak louder than words. So Terence McKenna was a big underground philosopher who found this ancient Chinese manuscript called the I Ching, and using a sequence of numbers from this ancient manuscript, he came up with a mathematical formula that essentially described the path of history. It's a very out there theory, and I just like it because it's so interesting and cool that this guy actually devoted his entire life to this crazy ass mathematical formulation of the history of everything. They called it time wave theory or novelty theory. And while many of you may not know his name, I think pretty much all of you are aware of the December 21st, 2012 end of the world cootie, baloney, hoopla. And that was mostly Terence McKenna's doing. He doesn't get credit for it, but it was his time wave theory that pegged December 21st, 2012 as the end of the world. While the Mayan calendar did end on December 21st, 2012, it was Terence McKenna's time wave theory and theory of novelty that, when combined with the Mayan calendar, produced this noetic sort of casserole of reactionary goodness. I don't know if that just made sense there. I just let words fall out of my mouth. So, Terence McKenna's time wave theory is one of the reasons why I am very optimistic about the future. Because the Great Attractor, that's what it was called, the Great Attractor, the event that pulled all of history towards it, that all of history was heading towards, the second coming of Jesus Christ, so to speak, happened on December 21st, 2012, when Gangnam Style officially reached 1 billion views. I was there, I was watching it. I don't think you'll see this referenced anywhere. This is simply a personal experience. But I was avidly watching Gangnam Style's view count in December of 2012. And I remember distinctly that Gangnam Style reached 1 billion views. This is like the 5th time I've said it, but I think that right there was Terence McKenna's Great Attractor. It was a symbol. It wasn't really anything actually important. It was a symbol symbolizing the dominance of the internet and the everlasting nature of cyberspace. Once a YouTube video could get 1 billion views, that's 1/7 of the world's population. Once that happened, the internet was never going to die. It will be, I think it is 100% impossible to destroy the internet. Not because it could survive a nuclear war, but because it can prevent a nuclear war. Not because it can survive a zombie apocalypse, but because it can prevent a zombie apocalypse. The internet will never die. It will always be a thing. And that December 21st, 2012 was like the moment when the internet passed the tipping point. It passed the tipping point and became the human consciousness. I have a pet theory. Now I'm getting into way crazy stuff. But I have a pet theory that the internet is actually conscious right now in this moment. That the internet is thoughtful. That your search results on Google are tailored to you by a conscious entity. I know, that sounds really crazy, but once you think about it, it's actually not so far-fetched. Billions of computers are attached to the internet, each one with billions of transistors. It only takes about I think in the range of several billion, maybe even several trillion neurons to create a conscious human being. But the number of transistors in this world connected to the internet, that is in the trillions, maybe even the quadrillions. And the internet is just as complex as a human brain. Neurons are hyperlinks, are links. It doesn't take a supercomputer to build a conscious entity. It takes several billion regular computers. I have no way to test this theory. One of these days I am thinking about actually devising a test that could, like a Turing test for the internet. That's going to be one of my pet projects, a Turing test for the internet. But until I come up with a reliable way to Turing test the internet, well, but I don't know. That's just my non-programmer's theory of the internet. I'm not a programmer. I'm somewhat of a computer geek, but I really don't know that much about computers. And my theories are way out of this world. They are crazy. They are just crazy. But I personally think it's just really fun to ask Google a question and imagine that there is an actual conscious entity who is behind your search results. So when you ask Google a question, it's like Google is a conscious entity giving you an answer based on what it knows about you. So maybe I'll develop that. Maybe I'll be the guy who comes up with a Turing test for the internet. I think I'm going to devise one right here and now, a Turing test for the internet. Oh, I know. You could have the internet compile a list of search results based on yeah, no, it's really difficult. It's going to require a programmer's knowledge. But that's all I had to talk about now. I have to say, my views are mine and mine alone, and I do not hold any one belief to be absolutely true. I think that all of my beliefs are just based on my senses, which are faulty. That's called skepticism. All of my senses are faulty, and so all of my beliefs are faulty. But they're my beliefs, and I hold them. I do not claim to be right on anything. That is my disclaimer. I do not claim to be right anywhere. I'm a skeptic. A skeptic in the true sense of the term. Although I do agree with Descartes' I think, therefore I am. Although I have to argue with him and say correlation does not imply causation. So the therefore part may not actually be true. That's actually not my idea. That's a long debate about the mind-body dualism and how the mind affects the body. And that's just, it's not my idea. It's a distillation of a long line of philosophical thought regarding how the mind can affect the body. And so I just tweaked it a little bit and came up with correlation does not imply causation. So just because you think and just because you are doesn't mean the thinking causes the are, or doesn't mean, yeah, I mean, I'm full of logical holes, obviously. I just found a logical hole there, a little semantic hole, but like I said, I don't really know anything. All I know is that I have fun thinking about things. So don't take anything I say seriously. That's just the words of a crazy person. So if you've watched this far, thank you very, very much. Check out my books in the doobly-doo. My books, I'm a writer. I've written 9 books, over 1 million words in total. And, well, thank you for watching. You're amazing if you've watched this far. As always, all of you are amazing. I hope you enjoyed me eating and rambling. And I hope you enjoy this new format where I have the microphone right here and I speak in a conversational manner, like I'm sitting across from you at a coffee shop. I want you to imagine that we are sitting at a coffee shop in a trailer and you are sitting across from me. So, thank you for watching and goodbye.